We are so excited about making this video today because if you're watching this, that means that you are a Delight Regional Director. We're so excited and stoked to have you come on board in just a few months. But before you start on the job, it's time to start raising support. This video today is going to walk you through the entire support raising process. We've got a lot of information coming your way, so get ready, maybe take some notes, and let's do this. A lot of you are probably nervous about the support raising process. There's a lot to do, a lot of information out there, and a huge amount of money to raise. But we have narrowed it down to 6 simple steps. If you go through each one of these steps thoroughly and carefully, we can promise you that you are going to be able to raise this money with no problem. So, listen carefully. The first step in the support raising process is all about creating your donor database. You might think that this is pretty simple and explanatory and straightforward, but this is the step that you're going to want to probably spend the most time on up front because it's going to set you up for success the rest of the support raising process. There are 5 different groups of people to think about when creating your donor database. The first is your family. So this is your grandparents, your parents, your cousins, your second cousins, any relative, whether you know them well or don't know them, put them on your database. The next group of people are your family friends. These are the people that maybe you grew up alongside, maybe your brothers played baseball together growing up, or maybe you and your family had dinner with their family every couple of weeks. Basically, anybody that your family is close with and has a great relationship with, you're also going to want to put them on your donor database. The third group of people is your church community. So this could be your church that you grew up in when you were younger. Maybe there's an old couple from church that you want to ask, maybe somebody from your Sunday school group, or it could be a church community that you've most recently been a part of in college. Those people can be included on the database as well. The next group of people are your friends. And a lot of people kind of think, well, my friends, they're in college, they don't have a lot of money, they're not going to want to support me. But chances are, if you ask, they will support you. So go ahead and put your friends on this list. And also think outside of the box and think of your friends' families. A lot of times they'll want to support and be a part of this with you as well. The next group of people is your Delight community. So obviously in doing Delight, this is an awesome group of people to reach out to because they know about the mission, they know a little bit more about Delight. This could be the girls themselves or even reach beyond that to their parents and their families. Reaching out to your Delight community is a really good thing. And then the last group of people we call everybody that you don't know yet. These are the people that as you're raising support are going to come into the picture. Every time you sit down with somebody and ask them for support, you're also going to want to ask them if they have any references for other people who might be able to support you in this process. So those are people that you might not be able to put on your list quite yet, but down the road you're going to have tons of names to add to this database. Now that we've brainstormed some groups of people, it's time to start writing these names down. So in your fundraising guide, we've created a long list to do this. So the list is broken out into 100 names. 100. And they're broken into different categories to help spark thoughts for each one. So before you do anything, before you start calling people, before anything, you're going to want to write all 100 names down. Make sure all 100 slots are filled. Now that you've created your list of 100 people, first off, we want to say congrats. That's amazing. The first part of the process, and honestly probably the hardest part, is done. Good job. So what you're going to want to do with those 100 people is first things first, start gathering their contact information. For each of the people that you wrote down on the list, you're going to want their email address, their telephone number, and their home address. The next thing that you're going to want to do is mark whether they're your first, second, or third round of contacts. So what this means is your first round of contacts are the people you're going to reach out to first because you're more confident in their donation and their support. You know them well. Maybe it's your family friends, people you talk to on a regular basis. The second round of contacts is people you don't know as well. Maybe you've only talked to them a couple times, you've only maybe heard about them but haven't talked to them. You're just slightly uncomfortable about reaching out to them. Those are your second round of contacts. Now your third round of contacts are people you don't know at all. This is going to be your very first time talking to them and explaining to them what Delight is all about. So after you've marked whether they're first, second, or third round of contacts, the next thing you're going to want to do is start creating your donor database. So what we suggest doing is creating a massive Excel spreadsheet. We don't have a template for you because we want you to have the freedom to make one that really works for you and your needs and just the way you like to set it up. But we're going to list some things that you're definitely going to want to include in your donor database. The first thing to put in the database is obviously their name and then what round of contact they are, first, second, or third. The next thing you're going to want to put is their contact information. So once again, their email address, their home address, and their telephone number. The next thing is the description of the relationship. So this is like how you know them. Maybe they're your cousin, maybe they're the friend of Suzanne's, or whatever it might be. This is the description of the relationship. The next thing you're going to want to do is create a section for any notes about the donor. So maybe they were a huge part of college ministry when they were in college. Maybe they have a daughter who goes to Wake Forest or anything like that that might be important to remember while you're speaking with the donor. The next thing is to write out just your communication plan. So when was the first time that you reached out to them and how you're going to reach out to them, whether it's an in-person meeting, a phone call, letters, things like that. The next thing you're going to want to have in your donor database is a section for when they make a donation. You can put how much they gave, how much they plan to give, and then in what way they'll be giving. And the last thing that you want to include on your database is a reference from this person. So you won't be able to fill this out right away, but we'll be able to fill it out once you talk to the donor. And make sure that you get a reference from every single person you talk to. You're going to want references that adds a ton to your database. And most of the people that they refer are going to be people who they really think will support the mission. So leave room for those references and make sure to fill that out after you talk to them. This section is all about the 4 simple ways to ask for donations. There's only 4 ways, so listen carefully. In all actuality, there's actually tons of ways out there to ask for donations, but we've narrowed it down to the 4 ways that we think are the best and most effective ways. The first being the simple ask. This is literally just sitting down with somebody and saying, "Hi, this is me, this is my story, this is what I'm doing, will you support me?" It's honestly as simple as that. So you might be thinking, what? Mackenzie, that does not seem so simple, gives me anxiety. But actually, it's really easy and really simple. Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna start with your very first potential donor on your donor database. Hopefully, they live near you and you can meet with them in person. Ideally, this is the best thing to do because you can show off your awesome personality and your good looks. And this is a really great way to just be able to explain the mission of Delight to them and get them on board. But your second option is to set up a phone conversation with them, which isn't all that bad and a really great way to do it as well. So here's how you're gonna set up the meeting with your potential donor. So what you're gonna wanna do is, of course, pick up the phone. People love when you're really personal and just pick up the phone and call them. You're probably gonna wanna be tempted to send a text or an email, but phone is the best, we promise. So what you'll do is pick up the phone and call your donor and say, "Hi John, this is Mackenzie and I'd love to set up a time to sit down with you and your wife and anybody else in your family and just share about what I'm going to be doing this next year and where I feel like the Lord is calling me, and share with you potential ways that you might be able to support me financially." It's really important to get that word financially out there. You want your donors to know going into the meeting what you're going to want to be talking to them about. You don't want to blindside them or surprise them and just say like, "Hey, will you give me money?" So you want to make your intentions clear going into the meeting. I know it sounds scary to get that out there and maybe feels uncomfortable, but we promise most of your donors have had similar conversations like this before and they're not going to be surprised by it. So just get that little simple phrase out there.
So below, we're gonna talk more about how to actually make this ask and how the conversation would go, including follow-up and how to actually get the donation from them. So we'll talk more about that later.
The second way to raise support, number 2, is all about through the internet and your online fundraising page. So we've set up a way for each one of our regional directors to have their very own beautiful, personalized fundraising page through our fundraising platform called Fundly. So in your fundraising guide, you're gonna find more information on things we'll need from you on how to set up this fundraising page. But basically, you're gonna wanna maybe take some pictures, create maybe like a little video of you talking and sharing about why you're gonna do the Regional Director Program and your heart behind it. You're gonna wanna write up your ask and all the information that people are gonna need to know about the Regional Director Program and why you're doing it. And then we'll take all of that information and put it into this online page where your donors are gonna be able to go directly to support you. It's a really cool tool that each one of you are gonna have to be able to use on the internet.
So once you've created that page, you're gonna want to promote it via social media or via anything you can ever imagine. So you wanna make sure everybody in your network knows about it and can easily donate. So maybe throughout the support raising process, you want to do like a couple like campaigns where you get this page out there, you're promoting it on social media. Social media has a huge platform these days and is a great way to grab people's attention and raise more support.
The third way to raise support is through a fundraising event. Now this is a super fun and exciting and interactive way to reach out to more donors and to ask for donations. So there's a lot of different opportunities and options out there for things that you can do for a fundraising event. Maybe you could hold a benefit concert and have some of your friends come and play music and invite the community to come and be a part of it, and you can share maybe some of your heart behind what you're doing and ask people to support. Maybe you could have a clothing sale, or you could have a Chick-fil-A night. I don't know, there's tons of different options out there, so do your research. But it's really important that you make it fun and interactive and invite lots of people to come.
So there's 2 purposes of this event. The first one is obviously raising more support. And by this I mean that you have to intentionally implement a way for people to donate during this event. You can't really expect people to just come and have like a bucket where they could maybe support and you don't really say much about it. It should almost be a requirement of coming to this event. They have to support in some sort of way. So make sure to implement that into your event. The second purpose is to get the word out there even further. So the event should have some sort of way where it spreads the word more, whether it's posting things on social media or doing some sort of like further like campaign or having people do references or something like that, so you can expand your network and more people will know about this mission because of this event.
So one thing to keep in mind is that a lot of times these fundraising events take a lot of work and a lot of effort. Fundraising events are great, but honestly, the best ways to ask for support is through that simple ask. So you don't want to put too much time or effort into your fundraising event. This should kind of just be something that is pretty easy and doesn't take a ton of work. So just keep that in mind as you're planning your event. Don't put all of your eggs into this basket. Spend more time on the simple ask, and then this is kind of just an extra thing that you can do.
The fourth and final way to raise support is through letters and emails. So this is the like traditional way that you would think of raising support if you're going on a mission trip or something. And it might work for like a mission trip because you're only raising like a little amount of money, but this doesn't, you can't rely on letters and emails for a large amount of donations. So you're gonna of course want to stick with that simple ask, those fundraising events, campaigns via social media and web. And then your last and final option is through letters and emails. If you can't reach the person for some reason over the phone or in person, maybe they're on your donor database but you just haven't ever been able to get a hold of them, send them a letter or an email just as like an extra, maybe I'll get support if I do this way.
So towards the beginning of your support raising process, it's actually really good to go ahead and sit down and develop this ask letter. This is a great way to just put on paper, once again, your heart behind what you're doing, why you're doing it, and more about the program. And then you'll have this as a tool throughout your entire support raising process. So like Ken said, you can send it in the mail to people that you're not able to reach, but it's also something that you can use maybe when you sit down with your donor for a simple meeting. You can leave them with this letter, so maybe a week later they'll find it on their kitchen counter and be like, oh yeah, I was gonna support Mackenzie, let me put a check in the mail. So it's a really great thing to have, and use it as much as possible during your entire support raising process. And those are the 4 simple ways.
If you get one takeaway from this entire section, it is to do the simple ask.
Simple ask.
Like literally 99.9 of those 100 donors should get a phone call from you asking if you could meet with them in person or over the phone. I know it sounds scary, but after literally the 3rd one, you're gonna be so comfortable and so confident about this. And I promise you, if you get them over the phone or if you sit down with them in person, they will give you some sort of money, whether it's $20 or $2,000. They will support you if you sit with them in person. So make sure to do that. The fundraising events, social media campaigns, letters and emails, those come secondary and should happen, but that simple ask is the number 1 priority.
Do the simple ask. Welcome to section 3 of the support raising process. Here we go. So we just finished off with section 1 and 2. In section 1, we talked about creating your donor database. In section 2, we walked through the 4 ways to raise support. And now this is section 3, where we're going to spend this entire time focusing on that simple ask and how to actually go through that conversation. So you've already at this point called your donor and said, hi, I want to sit down with you and talk to you about how you can support me financially. And now you find yourself sitting in front of your donor, they're staring into your soul, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what do I say? How do I do this? What do I even do with myself?
Do I know about Delight? I just forgot everything about Delight.
Well, if that's you, we have some simple tips and a guideline to get you through this conversation.
So before we get into the actual steps of this conversation, we just want to set the tone of this conversation for you guys. Just some things to remember going into it. So first of all, truly, you are inviting them into your mission with Christ. This isn't them supporting your shopping habits or anything like that. This is that inviting them. Wait, let me start over. I can do this better. Okay. So before we get into the logistics and the steps of this conversation, we just want to set the tone for you of how this meeting should go. So first of all, remember, you are inviting them into a mission with Christ. This is exciting, this is good. Really paint a great picture of what God is doing in your life and how they can join in and see God in their own life as well. You just have to invite them into this mission.
Keep in mind that not everybody out there has the time and energy to commit to kind of being on the front lines of ministry like you're having the opportunity to do right now. Maybe they have jobs and they have families and they have all sorts of obligations that prevent them from going on a mission trip or doing full-time ministry, but they do have the resources to support people who do have the time and availability to commit to that. So people aren't offended when you ask them to support them financially, because everybody wants to be a part of what God is doing all over the world, and so people love when you invite them to be a part of it.
The other thing to keep in mind in this conversation is almost everybody you sit down with in person will support you in some sort of way. So make sure to be just forward and intentional about asking them to join in on this. They will support you if you look them in the eyes and invite them in.
So now we're going to walk you through a little outline that'll kind of help you to guide each of these conversations. Keep in mind that every single conversation is going to have a life of its own, so they might all look a little different, but this is a great outline to keep in your head to make sure that you're getting the ask out there and it's a productive meeting. So the first thing you're going to want to do before actually going into the meeting is to make sure and do your research. We don't want you to be creepy, but basically think about if you're sitting down with a business person or somebody in your community. Usually you can Google these people and find out a little bit about them, know what they look like. So if you don't know what they look like when you're going into the meeting, you can figure out at the coffee shop or wherever you're meeting, oh, that's who I'm meeting with. You'll also want to know maybe what they do, what they're passionate about. Are there other nonprofits or ministries that they support? These are just good things to know that help to kind of connect dots in the conversation and will be really helpful when you actually sit down and are in front of the person.
Once sitting down with this donor, you're going to want to just start conversation with them. So just be relaxed and casual about it. This is your time to just ask questions about them. Maybe you point out some like special things that you learned during your research. Maybe it's about their career. Maybe it's about their family. And just seem really interested in what they have to say. Listen really well. A lot of donors love the platform to almost like give you advice or teach you or share something exciting with you. So make sure to listen and just be excited about what they have to share and leave room for that to happen at the beginning of the meeting.
The next part of our outline is all about sharing your passion and sharing your vision with the donor. So basically what you're going to want to do during this time is share a little bit of your story and your heart behind Delight. Tell your donor about what Delight is and what it does on college campuses, maybe how you came to know about Delight and your involvement with Delight, what it's all looked like, and then start sharing about why you're passionate about it. Why is this what you feel like God is calling you to? Make sure that during this time you really express that passion, because if you're excited and people can sense that passion for what God is doing in your life, then they're going to be excited as well, and they're going to be more likely to give and more likely to give larger amounts if they really feel like this is something that's really important and monumental in your life. It's really cool because this is the part that sets the stage for your ask. And if this is done well, it's going to make the ask a lot more comfortable.
The last part of this conversation is to actually make the ask. Dun, dun, dun. But this part of the conversation is obviously the most crucial part of the conversation. And you don't want the conversation to drag on too long before making the ask. Because if you let it just drag on forever and ever and you're blabbing and they're blabbing, you'll never get to it and the donor might get bored or might fall asleep. So you want to just be direct and confident about this. I think you will know the time to make the ask, so go ahead and just jump right to it. All you really need to say is, will you support me financially?
Say it with us.
Will you support me financially? Look them in the eyes and just say it with confidence. It's really simple, and if you do it well and with boldness, it really will be no problem. You want to make sure to be specific about the amounts they can donate. So prior to the conversation, you'll want to know kind of like an amount that they could possibly donate or that they're financially capable of. So if it's $100 once a month, say that. If it's $5,000 one time, say that. Whatever it is, come up with some sort of specific amounts, maybe a couple different options, just to give them some sort of direction. The other thing you want to do is be specific about how they can donate. So tell them, like, after this conversation or on that letter, you will see the link to donate, or I will send you a link to donate. Click that link and you can donate online, or you can send a check. The address is on that letter I just handed you. Make sure to walk them through the process of how they could donate really carefully and really specifically. And then make sure that they don't have to answer you right then. You don't have to sit there and like wait for them to say yes. You just leave them with the information and the details on how to do it, and then tell them that you will follow up with them, and then you're gonna want to follow up with them immediately after, which we will explain more later.
So we have a couple final tips for you to keep in mind during this entire meeting that will really help to make the meeting extra successful. So number one, make sure that you are energetic and excited. You don't want to be that person who comes in and is like, hello, welcome to this meeting, and this is really boring. You want to be excited and say, hi, how are you today? I'm so excited to sit down with you and meet with you. This is my story. Will you support me? Be excited. It really makes a difference. And your donor is going to respond to your energy. The second tip is to be comfortable with silence. And remember that silence is key. A lot of times we want to push through those kind of uncomfortable moments and silent, awkward moments, but they're really important when you're making a financial ask, because a lot of times what you want to do is listen to your donor. And when you don't kind of just babble on and on, you leave room for your donor to process things and to respond to things. And remember that your donor should be the person who's kind of leading the conversation. And so you want to listen to the things that they're saying so that you can respond and help to just be a part of what they're doing and be a part of the conversation. The third thing to remember is that practice makes perfect. This is something that you're going to want to rehearse, and it might feel weird, but I think you should maybe ask a friend if you can sit down with them and practice this meeting on them a couple of times. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and the more comfortable it's going to feel. So before you go into your first official ask meeting, be sure to practice this either with a friend or in front of the mirror or on video, anything like that that'll help to make sure that you knock this ask meeting out of the park.